Weights, parkour, and skateboarding? Plus, he did his own stunts and really got beat up for those big fight scenes. Andrew Garfield got ripped for Spider-Man. Here's how. For Andrew Garfield, getting his body into perfect Spider-Man shape meant spending hours in the gym lifting weights and training. The excessive exercise was just a sacrifice Garfield was willing to make in order to play one of his dream roles. When asked in an interview to give advice to a kid who might want the perfect Spider-Man body, Garfield responded frankly.
Dude, I can't preach about going to the gym because whenever I'm not playing Spider-Man, I'm not in the gym.
Garfield admitted that he does enjoy being active, but he's far from a gym rat. His advice to the would-be superhero was to identify whatever way your body wants to move and to lean into that activity, saying, "If line dancing is your thing, just go do line dancing. We need to move. Our body wants to move, but lifting weights is not for me." Garfield's trainer from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Armando Alarcón, disagrees with the actor on that point. He told Coach Mag, "Andrew will say he is not a weights guy, but his physicality and his ability say otherwise. After seeing The Amazing Spider-Man films, we have to agree with that take." Without a deep love for pumping iron in the gym, Andrew Garfield found himself relying on some childhood skills and passions as he began training to become the wall-crawling web slinger. Garfield told RTE Kids that he used to be a gymnast. That history gave him some familiarity with Spider-Man's movement and flexibility and meant that he wasn't going into his superhero training entirely cold. Garfield was also able to lend some more specific abilities from his past to the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. He also revealed that he used to be a skateboarder. Of course, when it comes to the big stunts that are seen in the films, Garfield had the assistance of wires and the occasional stunt double, but when Peter is flexing his skater boy skills in the first movie, that's all Garfield. He was able to infuse the character with his own personality and hobbies in a way that created a unique and unforgettable Peter Parker. When it came time to create a new universe for The Amazing Spider-Man, the filmmakers also wanted to take an approach to the action that was different from what had come before. Stunt coordinator Andy Armstrong agreed to join the project on the condition that he be allowed to use practical effects instead of CGI whenever he possibly could, saying, "Not to knock the earlier movies, but they feel dated now purely because CGI has come a long way. This new film became a very good opportunity to show what we can do with real-life stunts." Luckily for everyone involved in The Amazing Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield was more than ready to take on as many stunts as possible, saying in an interview, "I do about 70% of it, and then 30% of it is done by these two incredible stuntmen." The result of all that dedication is web swinging like fans had never seen before. When Spider-Man flies above cars in New York City, that's really happening, and more often than not, that's really Garfield behind the mask.
Hey, watch out! I'm swinging here!
Because Andrew Garfield was committed to doing his own stunts and truly embodying Spider-Man, he had to do much more than just get into shape to prepare for the role. Behind-the-scenes footage shows some of the off-the-wall training Garfield went through. He practiced all of the climbing and jumps that Spider-Man does on a daily basis while saving the citizens of New York. He also had to familiarize himself with walking and crawling along strands of webbing, just like the friendly neighborhood hero. In one of the most iconic moments in the first Amazing Spider-Man film, Peter links up strands of webbing to pick up on vibrations in New York's sewers. Part of why it feels so believable is because Garfield really is crawling along those strands. Despite how natural Garfield makes it look, he let his spider-like abilities go when the cameras finally stopped rolling. He told Total Film, "When you realize you can manipulate your body, it's empowering, but it's just so much work." During production, he constantly tried to think about his environment in terms of Spider-Man's abilities, but after everything wrapped, he says he tried to let it go. How much training really went into Andrew Garfield's first outing as Spider-Man? Garfield told Total Film, 7 hours a day for 4 months, but 2 hours was bodywork, and the next 3 or 4 hours was all the other stuff, like the harness stuff, gymnastics, parkour training, wire work, and all of that. But it was like summer camp, it was like circus school, just pure fun. For someone who doesn't consider themselves a fan of going to the gym, that's an extreme amount of physical training. Of course, it probably helped that it wasn't all just lifting weights. His trainers also had him on a special diet while training for the first film. Garfield explained, "It was a lot of bland food and existential dilemmas with weights in my hands. It was a very confusing time in my life." Garfield threw himself into the challenge of it all, and his dedication not only paid off in the film, but also impressed his trainers over and over again. Andy Armstrong told the New York Daily News, "Andrew was fabulous. He was at our training facility every day learning the stunts, beating himself up, and doing everything that he could." Having the body of a superhero and the know-how to pull off epic stunts just wasn't enough for the level of realism that Andrew Garfield and everyone else working on The Amazing Spider-Man wanted to bring into the project. He needed to be a master at moving his body. According to New York Daily News, Garfield took parkour classes to learn how to properly move around the cityscape of New York, and he took yoga classes to learn how to truly control his body's motion the way someone with heightened senses might be able to. In addition to the classes, Garfield's trainers put mirrors around the training facility and taped pictures of iconic Spider-Man poses to them, so the actor could practice them and memorize how they felt on his body. Stunt coordinator Andy Armstrong explained, "You have a big obligation to the fans to do your best and create something that's close to what they've seen in the comic book world." The Amazing Spider-Man franchise had its ups and downs, but there's no denying that Garfield nailed Spider-Man's physicality from beginning to end and truly brought the comic book to life. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Peter isn't just a high school graduate, but also a more experienced hero. This meant Andrew Garfield's training routine needed to change to take those extra years of swinging from buildings and defending the city into account. Garfield's trainer Armando Alarcón said in an interview with Coach Mag, "In the first film, we didn't use a lot of weights, but in this film we did. The split was 50-50 with body weight exercises." Training for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 began in November 2012, 3 months before filming started, and continued throughout the entire production. Alarcón said that he and Garfield would train for an hour or two a day, even on top of 12 to 16 hours of filming each day. The only time they didn't train was, quote, if he just physically couldn't. With a schedule full of battles against Electro and Rhino, who could blame Garfield for needing a break every now and again?
That's a question. That's a question. Oh, buddy.
As anyone who regularly works out knows, diet can be just as important as exercise when it comes to building muscle. Andrew Garfield is naturally thin and has a metabolism that burns through calories almost as quickly as he consumes them, so his trainers had a real challenge on their hands when it came to his diet. Speaking to Coach Mag, Armando Alarcón said, "The only way we could continue to build muscle was to give him 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day." When filming wrapped on the first Amazing Spider-Man film, Garfield told Total Film that he rushed to his favorite restaurant in Los Angeles for a tres leches cake, which he called the most beautiful cake you've ever witnessed. Even with his body in superhero shape, Andrew Garfield still had to go the extra mile to prepare for Spider-Man's fight scenes. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has some epic battles between Spidey and his villains, and they leave the wall crawler more beaten down than anything he dealt with in the past. Getting Garfield into the proper headspace for someone who'd just been smacked around by Electro's energy blasts was the responsibility of his trainer, Armando Alarcón. Alarcón told Coach Mag about his plan for the pre-fight workouts. "I wanted to ravage his body so hard that he understood what it felt like." The goal was to wear Garfield down mentally and physically so he could properly get into the headspace of a Spider-Man at the end of his rope. Battling with Electro pushes Spider-Man to the very edge of his abilities, and Alarcón's workouts, which involved just lifting and constantly moving, pushed Garfield to the edge of his. From the stunts to the superhero body to the true exhaustion of battle, Garfield's commitment to bringing Spider-Man to life never wavered, and the film was made better for it. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite stars are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.